way it is going to be organized is that we are going to obviously, cover the topic, challenges, questions, and solutions. We are going to try to be very efficient as much as we can. We have 20 minutes because it would be great to leave 10 minutes at the end to cover your questions and get to know you better. Okay? And this recording will be sent as well to all participants who signed up. So, a little bit about myself, for those who don't know me, who are not familiar with me. I'm Raya. I'm based in Norway, originally from Switzerland. And when I moved to Norway, I managed to explore and deep dive into my big passion for entrepreneurship. So I've been building several platforms targeting entrepreneurs, and first in Norway, then the Nordics, then globally. And today, our focus at the Visionary Company Board and BC, we invest in companies. So the past 10 years, I have been investing directly and indirectly via VCs, via several accelerators in Norway, but also in Europe. I have invested in over 100 plus companies. And the reason why we started the Visionary Board, it's because it started with the need from my companies. At some point, as an investor, you want to contribute with knowledge, network, and expertise. And many of them were looking for board members. And this is where I found it challenges to connect them to board members. I could vet, of course, I have skin in the game. I have invested in these companies. So I find it very challenging to find board members I could vet, I could trust, that have been, who know the challenges of high growth companies, sustainability, risk management, who can manage crisis management within a company. And I was very lucky to meet on my path Anna. I couldn't find any better person really to make it happen, because Anna and I started to work on the Visionary Board and creating a program and community that we could connect to the companies we work with and companies, executive search companies that need also competent board members. So at the core of the company, we have a community. So leaders, C-level at a European level, who can learn from top governance experts. Our partners are from BCG X, serial entrepreneurs who actually sold their companies to BCG X, to EY. We have also KPMG Law supporting us and training with us. We have Anna, obviously, who's a governance expert sitting on several advisory boards, sitting also on our board, and who's working at IMD Board Center as a coach, as a supporting the board members there and aspiring board members. So this is why we created the Visionary Board, to help create effective boards and board members that we can connect to great companies from our network.
And let's not forget, we also have wonderful, because I see, Sami is with us, who is one of our speakers actually on the board program. So we also do have, Sami is from Signum, which is a company, which is a headhunting company, who kind of also is, strong in recruiting and vetting board members. So I just, sorry, Raya, to kind of build on that. But since he has made the time to be available, I think special kudos.
Yes,
going out there
in Brussels in May, alongside the other governance experts that are joining. Exactly. So let's get started. Let's not wait any longer. Today we're covering the mindset shift, right? So we have prepared several questions. For you, Anna, I have prepared with you. And the exercise here is how to transition from executive to board roles. We're going to cover operational control and shifting the focus from short-term results to long-term strategy. So I leave the stage to you, Anna, and tell us what are the needs for board members and aspiring board members to be more effective when it comes to the mindset shift.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raya. Thank you also for this really nice and lovely, introduction. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. I think we can still say that. the focus today is really to discuss that very specific challenge that I do see when I coach or when I work with future board members, but also with board members who are already on boards. But when we are discussing the challenges that they are, let's say, managing the backpack of your experience as an executive, to the differences that of skills and attitudes and mindset, as you called it, that you need to deliver, or you need to pursue when you are moving into a board director role. And maybe just to also very much be clear, because there is always this soup of different types of names. So we're talking about non-executive directors here, or independent directors here, yeah, because there are always these different labels that people give to different types of boards, and so we specifically talking, from executives moving to non-exec roles or even independent roles. I think you've mentioned already one of the challenges that they are, relinquishing operational control. You said that this is this focus shift that you need to have in terms of migrating from short-term to long-term strategy. And I think that kind of covers the question about why is it so difficult to let go from operational involvement as in a non-exec role, because that's what it requires. And I think there are two levels or multiple levels that can be challenging. And the first challenge that I see is really that you need to focus when you let go of your executive role, which is basically managing the let's say, day-to-day operations, from doing stuff, from deciding stuff, to a more oversight, to a more governance, to a more, let's say, non-daily decision-making initiative. And when we're doing simulations, board simulations, we usually see that at the beginning, that's exactly, what is so difficult for the people, is to understand where are the boundaries of what am I allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do in this role, and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, because we have the tendency as former executives, and most of the board members are former executives. That's why we qualify as well to be on the board, because we know how the business works. But then out of a sudden, all of that needs to be forgotten, and you need to drop that backpack and have started to look at it from a different perspective. Another area which I think is kind of closely related to this is this tendency to look for more short-term. If you are in a company before that is measured on quarterly basis or half a year, if you are in a very, very lucky position, maybe you are just measured once a year. But as a board member, you really also have to go beyond that, because the aspect of being on a board is also to secure and to ensure the long-term survival of a company. And that is also applicable for startups and scale-ups, right? They, even though we always have the impression this is so dynamic and, it's at the beginning, it's all about survival, and there are so many daily fights. But at the end of the day, the board the board members are really in charge of securing that there is this, long-term vision and long-term compliance as well. Yeah.
Do you have an example in mind of a situation where a board member could be tempted to take the hat of an executive role in terms of the way they express themselves or they act?
Well, very typically, and all of those who kind of know me from already from some training that we've done together will certainly smile when I say that. But I think the most difficult moments are when the company is under crisis. Because then, your kind of executive intuition hits in. It's like, we need to solve the problem. And to a certain degree, back again to, what are we talking about? I think to a certain degree, when you are in a smaller entity and let's say, scale up, there may be really boundaries of who does what. But if you are in a gently larger entity, it is usually not your job as a board member to get hands-on and, and really get the get the day-to-day operations in the that are threatened by the crisis under control. You are so that's a challenging one, right?
Well, this was not planned for today, but for me it comes naturally, and I know that we covered this, during our program. Let's just like tap into it a little bit. So how do we create that influence without being hands-on?
Yeah, that's true. And that's, I think it's quite, that's actually, if we talk about what skills do you need to learn, it goes back to really how to, to learn how to display authority without actually having formal authority in the sense. So it is way more about navigating dynamics, navigating relationships in the board than one may think, because, and that's why, learning how to navigate board dynamics is also such a really important thing that is very, very different from how you navigate, for example, an executive team to start with, because a board is not a team. Yeah. So, so I think that there is this challenge there as well, of understanding that you, in a board, if you look just at the dynamic at the board level, you are not in a situation like you are with your management team, where you all work towards one specific goal, but in let's say in the dynamic part of it, of the board dynamics part, you are working in a collaborative setting where usually nobody has more power than the other ones, and it's also not so much about let's say getting to hands-on day-to-day decisions, but it is about leveraging the collective wisdom. It's more about an egalitarian decision-making process, building consensus and understanding, incorporating different viewpoints to then advise the management to do certain things.
And
it sounds so easy, right? But that's why we also have the simulations, because it is, I think personally, that's one of the most challenging parts as well to learn, is that and that's also the mindset shift that board members need to, when you're coming from executive, you need to really learn is that you need to put an extra effort on building relationships in order for the board dynamics to function, because per se, when you work with other people in your management team or what have you, you see these people way more often. You know how they tick. You have an experience. You've done, you've worked on projects, or you've seen them working on projects. Worst case, I mean, in the board setting, you may meet these people 3 times a year or 4 times a year. So having this special, alertness and awareness of the need that you need to build your emotional intelligence to build relationships with the board members, but also build the relationship with the management, right, is incredibly important.
Maybe how can we maintain independence and objectivity, if you have some advice?
Yeah,
it's our role is also to be hands-on.
Yeah, and that's, I think, perhaps another aspect that is, very different from being an executive is that, and I'm bringing this, I like this to kind of use this metaphor because it usually helps people to understand what we're trying to achieve here. Is that of a dancing room, of a ballroom, right? And when you think about the corporation being down there, and you have the CEO being the chef d'orchestre, being the conductor, and and then the management team playing the music, and then the people dancing on the floor. The board is not down there. The board is on the balcony. Yeah, the board is on the balcony watching what is going on here, and they have they have to have a conversation with the conductor. They observe what's going on. They observe the threats from outside. They are being informed about the latest trends of music, so that our company is not dancing to something very old-fashioned and going out of business eventually. But but that really requires that you understand your role of being independent of what is going on down there. Yeah, and one part of the challenge as well is the fact that you, of course, being a former executive, you have your ways of doing things. Yeah, you have to, the way how you've been usually making your decisions. You've been very effective in this. So prior experience may shape, the way how you influence, how you challenge assumptions, and all of that. And in the board, you need to understand that you are in a different position here. So
I remember we had this question last program we hosted in Amsterdam. Can a board member go to the CEO to have more influence, insights, try to advise them and understand better what's going on?
And I would say there is a twofold answer to that, because there are certain geographies, where depending on the structure of the how the board is kind of related to the company, you have certain rights, and certain things are perhaps, and also on depending on the size of the company. But what we have been discussing in our last program was that we very often see the self-censorship of people sitting in the board roles, not daring to speak actually to people on the management level, on the to the C-suite or other people. And there is with some few exceptions, no let's say there is no legal boundary or no legal prohibition for you to do that. However, for your own sake and mentality, the more you get entangled into the, and get to know these people, the more you can also lose your independence, because your role is to provide an additional side and not the same, right? So you are losing your effectiveness to a certain degree when you get too close to the management for whatever reason. And we can also discuss the fact that I would also, in larger board especially, I would also really encourage everybody to go to agree on some sort of a division of labor, because if you have a board that has, let's say, 6-7 people, and everybody starts to spreading out to get in touch with management and different types of people working in the company, then this can become very messy. So there is a certain, let's say, hierarchy, or there is a certain pragmatism that one needs to have, in the sense that we can task the chair with asking, please, go out and ask them, so that these people, who actually should be taking care about the job, don't get bombarded with questions from everywhere from the board.
It has to be centralized and organized.
It makes more sense to do it this way. Yeah.
What could be, because we're talking a lot about understanding board dynamics, understanding the job of actually a board member, and it means that also to have independence, it also means that we have to have enough expertise, knowledge, and intelligence on our side without going to the company each time for asking for feedback and understanding how they do AI, or data management and so on. So they need to have these skills already.
True. I absolutely, I do agree, which goes back into what what kind of basic skills do you need to have in order to be to actually be a suitable board member. And that's maybe also something that is a challenge for executives. This is because usually when you are an executive, you have a focus. Yeah, you are a CFO, or you are a CEO, or you are a marketing officer, or something. You have your core expertise. Whereas in the board, you need to become some sort of a very skilled generalist, because you need to have risk management skills, finance as a given, independently of what you've been doing before. You need to understand how to grow business, all of these kind of things. So your skill set needs to expand beyond, these type of things. You need to know basics about sustainability. You mentioned digital and IT. That's absolutely crucial for board members to understand, because of all the threats that may happen, and so on and so forth. So yes, you need to train for this, train and learn about it. But also
to understand doesn't not mean that you need to master,
I mean, you don't have to do it yourself.
All the areas. You don't have to master all the areas. You need to come in with your expertise, because like you said, everybody has in general been into one direction, CMO or CFO, and then being able to understand the company.
Yeah.
General
so
level.
Yes, I think, generally speaking, I, with very, very few exceptions, which perhaps apply more to NGOs than anything else, I think there is a very, very strong, let's say, I would say, need for the board member to understand the business. So I would definitely not encourage anybody to try to become a board member in an industry or in a business that they have no clue about. Just not very helpful unless you're coming in for a very, very specific situation that where the board needs some support on. And then again, do we really need a board member for that, right? That is another question. Or can we kind of just purchase the expertise by having somebody who kind of trains the board on that? But other than that, I would really say having some sort of an industry understanding and knowledge is important, or of the market that the company applies in is very important. And then definitely expanding your skill set towards other areas that may not have been in focus for you, but as a board member, you are in charge of the survival of the company. So anything that can be important or a threat for the company, if this is cybersecurity or sustainability, or if this is financial risk management, or the capacity to do proper sales and marketing, whatever the company is right now in, you have to be aware of. You have to have a minimum. Actually, you need to have more than a minimum understanding of it. As you mentioned, you don't need to have the capacity to do it yourself, but you have to, and I think that's the most important skill of a good member, is you need to know what questions to ask. Yeah.
I mean, this is why during our programs we cover all these topics, and it's very hands-on workshops on crisis management, on M&A, on financial reporting, on ESG. Because nobody is an expert in everything, but they come in as experts in their field, and they can learn to understand
the rest
areas of the company. And so there is, of course, a possibility to level up skills in governance when it comes to the different challenges that the boardroom will face. We are, I would still like to leave some minutes for the end. We still have like 15 minutes. And I had 2 more questions for you. So one, navigating the recruitment, and maybe let's make it the last question for the participants. How to navigate recruitment and land a board position.
Which is a skill as well, because we've been kind of focusing on, okay, what happens once you become a board member, and then the need to kind of balance off and manage your urge to become more operational and stuff like that. But I think one of the especially for the future board members that we have on the program, I think there is one specific skill that future and current board members all need to master, and that is, you need to understand that in order to become a board member, you need to do this is a very, very different approach from what we have been used to working in companies. So and you call that navigating a recruitment process, which is, but to me, it goes really down to really networking in a different way, understanding that now you are in charge. Regularly, in the corporations, when you're coming from a corporate background, we are used that there is a certain talent management process, and you're just being promoted if you deliver on a good job. But then there is this end of the line when you are kind of in a top management position, and then you want to go to the board, unless for whatever reason, you get promoted to the same board of your own company because you happen to be the CEO there. But if you kind of, if you are looking outside, you need to understand that you are outside of this automatic promotion route. So now you are in charge of your own fate, and the people who were helpful to get you executive roles, maybe your former colleagues, and that you would reach out in order to get another executive role. This network may not be absolutely suitable and helpful for you to get board roles, because this is not the right people.
Different community.
That's not the same network. And I think that people need to understand And very often that's one of the, of the challenges that I see, is that people underestimate the fact that they need to, if they haven't done so, they have to build a new network from the scratch. And I don't know if Sami is still with us, but I would actually like
here, because he's the expert on how to land a
exactly. Before I kind of try to overstep my boundaries, we have a very, very good expert in the thing. Sami, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you. Thank you. My advice in this respect would be twofold. One is personal reputation management. So you have to enhance your standing in terms of reputation, and you have to work on that. And this cannot be achieved within a week or two. So that's a constant process. It should start early. And the second thing, I refer to what you've said, Anna, it's a different network. And the relevant network depends on which governance structure you would be in for getting on a board. Whether it's the classical continental European two-tier system or the one-tier system. In some markets in continental Europe, where you have a two-tier system, getting board seats on important companies is rather political. So you have to have your network in this direction. With startups and other, scale-ups, it's more in the direction of private equity and venture capital companies you have to develop. And again, this is not something you can achieve in a week or two. It takes time, it takes constant work, and it takes also investment in terms of time and favors. And that will pay back.
Sami, we could not agree more, and hearing it from you makes it even more credible. And what you mean by reputation, I would rather, I would also call this, my brand. Yeah, you need to create your own brand in that regard, which of course, hopefully has a good reputation.
For those who joined after we made the intro about Sami early on, Sami is managing partner at Signium, who's a leading global executive search company specialized in board members. He's joining the training we have in May in Brussels, 13th to the 15th of May. So we will have the opportunity to learn from him directly and network with him as well. All our speakers are staying beyond just their session to the opportunity to really build your network with not only the participants, but also the amazing speakers who are joining us.
My pleasure.
Great. Thank you so much.
It's time maybe for questions from
I think so.
I would suggest that they leave it in the chat to make it easy for us to follow and everybody to read. And we have a first one from Lupi. What are the legal responsibilities of board members? Big 2-hour minimum topic. Come on in May. It will be covered by KPMG. But let's give some.
Okay, so first of all, let me put it this way. That's not necessarily the topic of today, and it is a bit of a larger topic. And since I have legal training, let me take out the famous, the favorite legal answer from any lawyer, which is, it depends. No, jokes aside, it really depends on the, it really depends on the, let's say, on the board level. On what tier you sit in, what country you sit in. Let's say, so maybe to make it simple, advisory board members don't have a legal, they don't have any legal risks to take. When you come into executive, non-executive boards, supervisory boards, there is a different ball game. Then we have an animal which is called Verwaltungsrat in Germany, in Switzerland, excuse me, which where the board members are directly liable for compliance and have fiduciary duties. But it really, supervisory board members are legally accountable, ensuring that management is in compliance with law. It really depends on the setup. So I would encourage you to do your research. Definitely something that everybody needs to do before signing up on the question of am I willing to take the legal risks that go with my board position. And I'm very sorry that I cannot be more precise, but it really depends on geography, on the type of board that you are sitting in to reply to that question correctly.
We have Håkon who mentions, and I know this is the case in Norway, in the boards he had, they had board insurances for all members.
Yes, there is always we call them D&O insurance that covers for certain things. However, one also needs to say that D&O insurance does not cover for all. Yeah, the D&O insurance covers for board stupidity, but if you are, if the board is kind of brutally, let's say, purposely doing certain things that are not okay, this would not be covered. But I think this is maybe another, this should be maybe a webinar with KPMG who kind of go more into this, right?
We have it in May, but maybe we can do another short webinar on this.
Exactly.
So from Agnes, I definitely recommend to take a board course, especially in the country you would like to operate at. At a supervisory board, you will not execute indeed. However, you will be making high-stake decisions and lead management. Thank you, Agnes, for your input.
Exactly. Supervisory boards for everybody who's not from that geography is what we have in Germany.
Okay. And from Peter, can a board member having experience from a corporate big company be successful as a board member for a small company, a startup? I will take this one. Okay.
Yes, take this one.
Yes, my favorite industry, startup and scale-ups. So I would say, again, it depends, what's your background? How are you going to contribute? The overall general experience is that they are not the best fit for startups, okay? Because now this said, I don't know if this question is from you, Peter, if you're considering, joining a startup. I don't know your expertise. I don't know how you would contribute, obviously. If it's a network of clients, then it's relevant. Startups need clients, they need money. So you can contribute with clients, opening doors, great. If you can contribute with bringing cash in from investors, great. Maybe your expertise is in risk management. Is it a startup evolving within risk? Maybe your expertise is within insurtech. Maybe it's relevant. Now, what I have seen is that even though that those who think it's a fit for them, a startup, the reality is that they're gonna get a little punch in the face because they go from a big company that is structured with processes, regulations, following regulations. While startup, they say, oops, I'm sorry, I did it, So you have to be aware of your expectations, okay? You're going into a wild ride, startups. Now, I think it's a great way to start a board position because startups really need you.
To professionalize.
Yes, and they need resources. So I would always invite board members from large companies, if they have an interest in innovation and like high growth, challenging companies, go for startups because it's easy to get a board position there. It's easier than bigger companies. It's a different, more exciting work, I would say, at least for me, That's
I agree.
I know. And I would say do not start as a board member immediately. Take your time. This is also what we cover in a large extent during our programs, how to do your due diligence on companies you
And maybe if I may add one thing, I think the biggest challenge is really to manage expectations, as you mentioned it. What we see, or what I see, is that there is sometimes, coming from the corporates, there are certain levels of expectations to, let's say, the level of professionalism with which you can your board deck looks like, the information is there, the processes are in place, and so on and so forth. And if you start from a board position, which can be a position of power to to pressure the company to adhere to your standards, in the sense that we want to have a severe amount of reporting because this is the way how we can oversee what the company is doing. you may as well, because this is what you also are used from your big corporate, having these big reports, with all the data and the numbers and the graphics and what have you, and 70 backup sites. A smaller company will not have the manpower to actually, do that, and you can completely kill the business by I mean, I've seen it where the company was spending more time on producing reports for the board than they were spending time on actually focusing on the business, and that is definitely time wrongly invested.
Yeah. Like Agnes said, I totally agree with you. This is also a recommendation we give to the participants who join us, starting with the advisory role, definitely, even as a mentor. Take your time, get to know each other, date. So get to know each other, see how it's evolving, how your relationship is evolving, how the business is evolving. And along the way, that takes me to the next question from Lupi. What is the hourly rate for board members? Can you provide a price range? And so along the way, while you are with startups, it's very different, okay? And from a country to another as well. So, but along the way, you can agree together what would be the compensation. While with a big company, from the get-go, if you get the board position, if you manage to go through the processes or via your network, which is something we highly recommend because it's very efficient. This is how most board positions are landed, via the network. Then at the corporate level, it's a different price point. I can speak about the startups, and maybe Anna, you can talk about hourly rate, or is Sami still with us? For startups, usually board members actually buy their way in. They would invest, so don't expect to be paid. You pay to be able to have equity in the company and be part of the journey, because they don't have money to pay you. So there would be this kind of exchange. Now, if they have possibility to pay you, it would be from a country to another. It's different. In Norway, I know it's between post-revenue company reaching close to profitability, it's 8,000 to 12,000 euros, okay? Usually 10,000 euros per year, we're talking here, per year. Remember, these are startups. Now, for board members in bigger companies, maybe Anna, you can answer.
Well, usually for board companies and bigger companies, first of all, this is public information usually, because board, compensation has to be made public usually. So you can also, or if you don't have it for that specific company, you may want to benchmark with companies that made it public. But maybe to start with the question, I'm totally not aware of having hourly rate as a board member. I've never seen that. Yeah, so that's not necessarily the way how you would calculate your remuneration, whatever kind of way you do it. But what I would always insist on is of course your expenses should be covered. So if that is a given. So even if you buy in your let's say your seat at the table with with money and equity, I think the company should always at least reimburse you for your expenses occurred. Yeah. In my knowledge, some of again, I'm going to speak about the cases I'm aware of. Board member for a larger company, it's again a discussion, a negotiation. And depending on your responsibility, on the workload as well, which can change. And Sami is here, so let's let Sami answer. Sami, you're the master of.
No, I'm not the master. I can only tell you from my experience and observations. Depends largely on the market you're in. Germany, for example, pays very high for big companies supervisory board, and I think there we are in annual salaries for board members in the range of 400 to 700,000 euros. Austria is much less. So the chairman of the supervisory board sometimes gets 100,000 euro per year, but usually it's much less. So you won't get rich being a board member. That needs to be said. And coming back to the risk equation, you have to think twice if you take the risk
for the money
in comparison to the compensation. And given the governance structures, you cannot even add to your income as a board member through advisory fees, because that is unethical. And we have a case here in Austria where, you know, the board members now are sued for €1 billion because the company went bust. So it's not for the money. You should not be in for the money.
However, you can hold many board positions at the same time.
No.
Again, this is limited. Meanwhile,
No.
You do actually. That's a possibility. I know people who leave off their board positions. They hold.
That's true, but I mean, on the other hand, and I think this is good governance, right? I mean, and everybody who actually really has sat any time on the board will tell you that in order to be a good board member, you really need to be. I mean, it takes time. This is a lot of work. And one of the problems, and here we're coming back to the mindset shift of executives, is this, that you have an information asymmetry. You don't have necessarily all the information that are available in the company to you, which on one hand is helpful because you can, you know, it's easier to maintain your independence. On the other hand, you need to do your own work by getting informed outside of what's going on in the industry, what's going on in with the competitors, what's going on in the in the sectors that are very relevant, or with the threats or with the risks of what have you. You need to do your own work and really learn, and train. So it is not. I mean, if you take board positions, how we hope you would take, this in terms from a governance perspective. Of course, you can be a very lazy board member and just pray that nothing will ever go wrong and just sit them through. But usually those ones also get kicked out because you don't add value to the company, right? But having said that, usually it also doesn't really look good. So I would not hire somebody on my board if I would see that that person already has more than 4 or 5 board positions somewhere else.
That's the limit.
Yeah.
But it also depends on the company stage and size.
Absolutely.
In general, as an investor, you can sit, if the startups allow you, you can sit on as many boards as you want. Of course, if the work starts to become more and more heavy, then, time is limited. You will have to reduce the amount of seats you take. So it's not that it's
and also, don't get me wrong, there is no legal limit
Exactly.
to my knowledge, at least, as to how many board positions you might have. And I don't want to take, to my knowledge, as I say, because I don't know, maybe somewhere there are, but there are no legal limits as to how many board positions you may hold. However, there are governance reasons that people will just look at and will not take you on a board if you already have too many.
You want to add something? Sami?
No, I don't think so.
He raised his hand. Okay, I think that's it for today.
Are there any questions left, or are we good?
Last comment was from Agnes. Professional board members may have 4, but no corporate role next to them. Yes.
Well, that's clear. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. This was a pleasure sharing with you. Thank you for showing up, taking the time. I hope you're having lunch at the same time that you were listening to this. We will send the recording to everybody who signed up. If you are interested in the next board training, we're hosting, this is a European board training, 3 days on site in a beautiful location. All together, so you can elevate your board skills and network at the European level with Sami, who's here with us, with KPMG, BCG X, L'Occitane. We have a board member from L'Occitane Group and Pictet Foundation coming, as well as really amazing other experienced board members. Shoot me an email, reply to the email you'll get from me. Looking forward to staying in touch. Have a great day.
Thank you, Raya, for having me, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.